Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please drop us up, drop a like, and let us know your thoughts below in the comments. Also, please consider supporting our podcast via the link below. It really helps us out.
Josh, welcome to the World XP podcast. How are you, man?
World XP. I'm good, man. It's good to see you, Mr. Eric.
So, for those that don't know, I met Josh through, we'll call it Podcast Host Army. It's this group with like-minded people. We try to give each other tips and tricks on podcasting and kind of the tools that we're using to make our lives more efficient and fun. And then along the way, I learned loads about Josh and all the gazillion of things that he's doing. So I'll let him do a quick intro, and then for those listening that know that every guest gets a question from the previous guest, we'll jump into that, and then we'll jump right into it. So how are you, man? Who are you and what you do?
Yeah, who am I? I crafted this the other day, man. I got it tattooed on my arm. It says, "Who am I?" I spend a lot of freaking time trying to figure out who I am and, what I'm supposed to do on this earth. I'm 42 years old and I'm still uncovering what that looks like. So I wrote this up the other day. Let me read it. It's just a sentence or two. But this is I guess, my charter for living. It says, I'm created in the image of my heavenly Father with nothing to prove and nothing to fear. I am a husband and father. It is my greatest joy. Professionally, I serve as a podcast host as well as advise investment groups, guiding them in sourcing deals, people, and soon capital.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I like it a lot. I haven't had anyone have a scripted, not scripted in a negative way, but I haven't had anyone had a spiel like that before. Usually people are just like, "Oh, I'm Eric and I play soccer and I do this and I do that." Um, what made you want to come up with that?
Well, I guess, like I got it tattooed on my arm. It says, "Who am I?" So I spend a crazy amount of time trying to figure out my identity, my purpose, my calling, because otherwise I feel lost. If you ask my wife or anyone that's known me more than, a day or two, they'll realize that I am constantly lost. My sense of direction is terrible, which is funny because I used to drive an ambulance and in a fire truck. So like getting to a specific address or location is pretty important. So I spent my life just having a hard time, or we'll call it orientation, disorientated. Where am I? Where am I going? Not only behind a wheel, but also in life. So writing that up kind of helps set the guide rails of who I am, who do I serve, why do I do it?
Yeah, 100%. Um, so I think this ties into the questions from the previous guests, and like I mentioned to you offline, I'm going to combine the last two. One is what keeps you motivated to continue in your career. And the reason why I wanted to combine the other one with it is because you've got lots of careers. Also, I think you just answered that one a little bit. But the other one is, what is one skill that you think everyone should have? Um, and so I wanted to combine those two because through our conversations, I figured you've talked to lots of people. I figured you'd have some good insights into those.
Yeah. All right, let's start with the one skill that I think everyone needs to have. Oh gosh, that's even a hard one. So just one skill.
Could be
Um,
two or three if you can't split the hair.
yeah. So I think the umbrella will be understanding people, and included in that umbrella is understanding yourself, but also understanding maybe the needs and the desires of other people, right? So if you can increase your EQ, which is the emotional quotient, like if you could increase your understanding of self, what brings you joy, what you're good at, what your strengths, weaknesses, etc. And then you could also understand what motivates and the desires of other people, the pains of other people. I think if you could understand that, it just makes you a better human. If you get really good at it, you could get really good at in influence and sales and marketing and strategy and leadership, right? Like that kind of all falls under the bucket of knowing thyself and your neighbor.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what the previous one said as well. That I when I asked him, he said communication skills and emotional awareness were the
Wow.
two that he gave. And then so to follow up with that, what keeps you motivated in your I'll change career to like um you keep trying new things and keep attempting new things. Often, I'll say with maybe high risk of failure is maybe not entirely accurate, but also not entirely inaccurate. But you keep trying new ventures, and so what keeps you, okay, a lot of people have interests, right?
Yeah.
And some people don't really pursue them. You jump all the way in. So I guess what keeps you motivated to continue to pursue new interests in the manner in which you do?
Oh man, great question, Eric. So, how about with that question, I kind of give a just high level overview of all of the different careers and paths and journeys and
Yeah,
failures
yeah,
that I've had. And I'll
yeah.
do it quickly because it would take me a long time to do it.
We're gonna have
Um,
to jump into it anyway, so you might as well start now.
all right. I was born in South Florida, in a place called Holy Cross Hospital, but early age, age 5, I was with my dad on a construction site, swinging hammers and picking up nails, and I was the demo guy. All right. So, like, think about South Florida. It's hot. I'm digging ditches from early age, like workhorse, right? Fast forward, I got into real estate. My thought was dad could build it, I could sell it. Then I kind of accidentally brought investors to the table because I was friendly and I understood people. And then I went from swinging hammers to digging ditches to building because I brought investors to the table in the early age of like 20, 21 or something, like maybe even younger. But we went from, remodeling and barely making ends meet to like doing pretty well, building, duplexes and triplexes and quads and developing land. And this was like a huge change for our family that I kind of initiated not knowing what I was doing. And then I got into speculation in real estate, built a bunch of spec homes, right? So by this time, like I was going to school and I'm maybe a doctor, and I was like, man, I don't know chemistry and I'm gonna flunk out of this stuff to maybe let's go nursing, maybe I wanted to be pararescue and do special force and such like that. But my dad's advice to me, because he was shot twice and he knew what it felt to be gutted with a bayonet. So he's like, hey, Josh, let's not do that. So he's like, if you're going to go in, go as an officer. So at least you can, have better pay if you get stabbed. So, instead, I went to school and I did all these things and I was doing all this stuff in real estate. And before you know it, like I built millions of dollars worth of things. But then when the market crashed, I was left with nothing. Had to turn keys back over to my condo, saw a vehicle leave on the back of a tow truck. And before you know it, I was sitting in um, it was gosh, what year was it? It was a 1996 Honda Civic, like nasty, 250,000 miles on it, no AC in Florida. And I screwed an oscillating fan on the dashboard because that's how hot it was in Florida. But so here I am, I've just built millions of dollars worth of stuff, and like I've had all these things, and I hopefully I'm getting my timeline right, but like here was a big failure where I look back and I go, I can't believe I just accomplished that, man. I had team members, I had a partner, I had a COO, I had an assistant, like, and then now, like, I don't know how to pay my bills. I'm gonna be, kicked out of my house. And I'm freaking out. This was 2007, 2008. And a lot of people were experiencing this. This is when the housing bubble hit. And I didn't know what to do. That was the first time I really struggled with what am I going to do with my life, man? I really chased hard. I've got a degree. I was a real estate agent, real estate broker, opened my own office, sold millions of dollars worth of stuff, right? Like, but here I am with nothing. And I go, I'm sick of this. Like, what am I going to do with my life? And everybody's asking, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no freaking clue, dude. So that kind of inspired me to, try to focus on maybe service instead of money. So I end up, going to EMT school, emergency medical technician. And then I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at helping people, and I'm tactical in the way I think. So I see, a situation, I know how to manage a chaos situation. So I was like, this is fun. Fire college, paramedic. Now I'm a firefighter medic doing this, but I gave up money for service because firefighters really don't make a lot of money, high risk. And I was on the fifth busiest truck in the nation. So like I'm working my ass off, and I'm sitting at night reading books about like business and money because I had a taste of that. Now I'm a firefighter. I'm like, I need to bring that back in, or I'm not going to be able to get married one day and have kids and buy a house. So I'm like studying all these books, and I'm running a landscaping company as a firefighter. I'm teaching at the college, and I'm teaching defensive tactics. So like you start adding up all my jobs so far. Oh, and I didn't mention I used to wrestle alligators professionally, right? So like bundle all of that, now fighting fires, delivering babies, working side by side with like police and SWAT and such like that, teaching defensive tactics, teaching paramedic, running fitness boot camps at my thing. So here I am, a busy dude, right? Because I needed to make money, I needed ends to meet, and I saw what the power of capital could do in someone's life. My dad struggling to meet, make ends meet, to, having disposable income. It was a different story, and I got to see my dad kind of evolve into that. So like I was like, I want that for my family, my life. I didn't care if I was going to be a billionaire, but I wanted that. So here I am running all these fitness boot camps, and I'm studying fitness, and I'm studying nutrition. And one day I was doing all this stuff, and I wrote down my ideas about a fitness company, and I shared it with someone. And they're like, "This is really good." So I started sharing it with other men who just had money, that I knew in my life, other investors or whatever. And they're like, "This is a really good idea. You should do it." So I retired from the fire department. I took an early retirement, which means that, like what little money I've accumulated over 6 years of being a firefighter, I cashed out, cash in hand. So you pay a huge chunk of change to the government or whatever, some penalty. And I moved me and new wife to Jacksonville Beach, Florida, to build a fitness company called the Village Push, 2012. All right. So let me pause here.
Mhm.
That's a lot. You want a kind of a chronological.
Yeah.
Uh,
So this is great. I think you've done an amazing job just sharing with the like the breadth of things that you've done. Um, I want to rewind a bit to like 2005, 6 time frame.
Yep.
So you're working for your dad at this time?
No,
No,
I've opened my own real estate brokerage.
but you're working with him though. Or are you fully on
Mm,
your own at this point? Okay, so let's go back to when
I'm
you're
fully
working
on.
for slash with your dad and the transition
Okay.
of you bringing in some investors to then your own thing. Where did the kind of trade off from oh, I'm digging ditches to now I'm actually sitting in a room with some guy that's going to finance this project? How did that transition happen for you at such a young age? And not, well, I shouldn't say age, but we'll say lack of experience, maybe, right? You kind of were flying blind at that point. How was that transition for you? How did it occur? And then how were your thoughts at the time? Like the first time you go into a room and you're asking some guy to lend you X amount of money to build something. Um, was it were you just tagging along with somebody, or was it a happen? Like, was it a chance, or how did that work? And then how did you um I guess continue it? Because if it's chance or whatever, there's always a chance that happens one time and never again. But you're like, no, I like this and I'm good at this.
Yeah.
How did that work out for you?
Yeah. It did not work out well for me at the time. So I'm working with my dad I'm going through college, studying real estate. So I just passed I think I'm now a real estate agent. So maybe early 2000, might have been early 2000s. I don't remember the exact date, but I'm working with my dad construction. My dad didn't have employees. He wasn't good at keeping employees. My dad wasn't a great manager. My dad was a hard worker. He would outwork anyone, and he had charisma. But my dad's working, and we're remodeling this guy's house down the road, Bill, and we're doing this renovation job. And I'm like, Dad, you're working your ass off, and you're like 50 something years old. You're up on a roof, like you're not going to live forever. Like we got to figure out how to build this into a business instead of job by job by job. So I'm having these conversations because I'm in school. He told me you need to go to college. So I'm in college, but I'm reading books on the side like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, Dad,
That's a
we're
great book as well. Everyone should read
great
it.
great book, yeah. so we're job by job and we're, barely making ends meet. And I'm like, we need to focus on building a business. So I start reading these books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I start reading books on not commercial real estate, on real estate investing. I went to a garage sale and I bought a real estate investment course from Carlton Sheets. It said how to buy houses, no money down. So I'm reading this. I'm like 18, 19 years old reading these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad, you're great at construction and renovation. Like, what if we do, instead of repairing other people's houses and getting paid job by job, let's build an empire. Let's do some real estate stuff. And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have no money. We can't afford it. I'm like, well, I got this book. It says how to buy houses, no money down. So I'm learning how, and in the book, in the cassette tape. So the cassette's done, you take it out, you flip it over. So I'm driving around listening to these things and I'm studying it. And to make extra money for myself for, beer money or whatever, I take a job valet parking cars at the local horse auction. I live in Ocala, horse capital of the world. So I'm valet parking cars, and this old guy walks out, a big white mustache, flat cap. So if you see me wearing flat caps, it's a nod to this dude, right? So I like hats, but every once in a while, like I'll throw on my flat cap. It's a nod to this guy. It's to honor him. So I'm valet parking cars and I'm hustling, dude. I'm running to the cars because it's hot, it's Florida, and these people don't want to stand outside in the heat. So this one guy comes out and he handed someone else his car keys to go get the car or the ticket or whatever. And he's standing there and we're just standing. I'm waiting for the next person to come out. He goes, "Why are you smiling?" I'm like, dude, I'm going to school. I'm making money. My God loves me. And I'm gonna, I think I said something like, and I'm gonna make $1 million by the age of 25. He's like, huh. So we just stand there talking, and big belly, old dude, probably 70 at this time, white mustache, flat cap, and he called me Charlie. He goes, "Okay, Charlie," and here comes his car, Rolls Royce, pulls up, and he gets in, and he's squinting, he's like looking around, and I was like, "Hey, dude, you don't want to wreck that car. That's probably worth more than anything I've ever owned. Take my sunglasses, man. Like, go have fun, and don't wreck the car." And he goes, "Hey, I'm in here from Kentucky, traveling out of town, and all my family's back there. I have a wife and 11 kids. Like, do you want to have dinner?" He said that, and I was like, "Is this weird? Is he gonna try to like have sex with me or something?" Like that. I'm like, you're a young kid. And you're like, this old guy's asking me on a date. Like, what's going on? And I was like, not that I wanted to go on a date with him, but I was just like, yeah, man, I would love to learn what you do and how you could, afford this car. I was like, heck yeah. So we went out to Longhorn Steakhouse or something like that. And I'm sitting there and he's like, "What are you trying to accomplish? Like, what are you trying to do?" And I'm young. I don't know how to talk to investors. I grew up on a construction site. Right? I was well mannered and polite. I'm educating myself on investments and such like that. And I go, "To be honest, I want to get my dad off the roof. He's 50 years old, Vietnam vet, hard worker, but he doesn't know how to build a business. I want to get him off the roof." He goes, "What does he do?" I say, "He's in construction. We're remodeling houses." And he goes, "Huh." I was like, he goes, "Well, how can I help?" I said, "Listen, we don't have money. You probably have money. How about we do this? I'll go look for a bunch of houses to repair. Like, we'll do all the work. You can help us with the money side of it. We don't even know what money looks like. You help us with the money side. We'll do all the work, and then we can work out some way to share on the revenue." Or I call it revenue. I was like, we could share in the money that we make together. He goes, "Okay." So that night I go home and I see Dad. I said, "Dad, just met this dude." And he's like, "That sounds weird. Was he trying, like in his mind, he's like, "Was he trying to have sex with you?" I was like, no. Like, "Dad, we had dinner, we talked, and he said that he wants to help us. He wants to maybe do a deal." And he goes, "No, I don't trust people." My dad was burnt a bunch. So he's like, "I don't trust people. People with money are greedy." And so, like, that was the mindset. He's like, "I don't want to do that." And I was like, "Dad, just let's go for a ride." So that next day I took off school. I'm like, "Dad, we're doing this." The next day he drives up, picks us up in a Rolls Royce, and I have a list of homes. and we start looking at some old homes and some old buildings, some old duplexes, and we drive by a duplex that's like pretty nasty. And I was like, we could buy this, we could fix it up, we could rent it, we could sell it. And he goes, this that was my frame of thinking, right? Which was good.
Hmm.
It was one, one step different than swinging hammers. It's like now we can maybe build an asset. And Charlie looked over to the right and he saw a for sale sign for 5 acres. He goes, "Nope, buy that." We're like, "We can't afford that." And he goes, "We're going to the bank right now. Write up an offer. We bought that property. We built, instead of fixing duplexes, we built 50 or however many, right?" So that was like the game changer, right? But my dad, you asked how did
Real
it turn
quick,
out? Yeah.
how at you at the dinner, are you just like too naive to not know that you shouldn't ask this guy for like $1 million or however much it was? Like, because that's a pretty ballsy move to be for like if somebody's like, "Oh, how can I help?" At least my first reaction generally is like, "Oh, well, we're struggling with this and that," but it would not be business
Mm,
offer as a however old you are to some guy that's done all these things. Like, because in my head I'd be like, why would he want to go into business with me? So like, where was your head? Like, walk me through your own mental state at the time. And I'm willing to guess that you remember this because this is like the first big one, and those experiences don't happen every day.
for sure. I didn't ask him for money.
Well,
I
what'd you ask
asked
him?
I asked him for wisdom and for help,
Hmm.
right? I didn't ask him for hey, just give me, stroke us a check for $1 million, we'll manage it, because we didn't know how to manage money. So I knew in my heart, like, I'm not going to ask this guy for money. What I'm going to
Sure.
do is I'm going to ask him to be a part of it with us, which was a different frame of thinking. If he would have said, "Yeah, Josh, I'll give you money," we probably wouldn't have managed it well and it probably would have failed. He managed the money. He was good at that. We were good. I was good at lifting heavy things, and my dad was good at swinging hammers. That's what we did. So, like, I wasn't asking him for
Or
money.
or even so, to ask to go into business with a guy
Yeah,
when you're that age is more of what I was getting at, regardless of if it was money or whatever, some sort of deal that where money is in it, I guess is I should have
for
phrased it
sure.
more properly.
I digging ditches is hard. And I saw
Hmm.
my dad at 50 something years old carrying cinder blocks or carrying plywood and, like climbing up ladders and waking up going, "Oh, my body," like cracking and hear that stuff and, like seeing how hard that was on my dad. So I was doing it for my dad. Like, if we didn't take this opportunity, then my dad's going to die on the roof. And
Yeah.
I didn't want that to happen. So, like, the only thing I knew reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, reading this thing, we have to start building something that's not turn and burn every single time. We needed to build something that was going to grow in value and provide some level of cash flow or big hit to us, like big
Hmm.
win. So, like, I was so scared for my dad dying at an early age. What did I have to lose? And the fear, I didn't want to become that. So I will
Mm.
do anything to not have to do that the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That
So
that terrified me.
that's really good insight. So I want to next kind of get your mindset in, right? You're driving around with this guy and your dad's in the car and he's been burned before and you've got to convince him that this is a good idea. Um,
Mm.
I've been in that position before with various entities where it's like, okay, this would be great for you and great for you, and both sides are like, well, I don't know, and it's like, no, you got to do it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and when it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
it's a bit like, oh, that sucks. And then when it does happen, you as kind of, we'll say like the middleman or whatever, kind of feel a sense of accomplishment with that. Given the stakes are higher, that is your dad.
Yeah.
How is that? Because you also don't want to be, well, you do want to be a bit pushy in this case, but
Yeah.
how does that conversation go in your head? Are you getting pushback? Are you getting frustrated that he's not seeing the vision that you are? Is he like, where are you at in all that?
Oh, for sure, man. You know, we have these belief systems, and our belief systems dictate how we act. Our belief systems dictate our, the results of what we do, right? But it all starts with belief systems. So my dad had a belief system that people are going to screw me, people with money are evil and greedy, and all these things. That was my dad's belief systems. I didn't have those yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, ah, this guy wants to help us. I was like, heck yeah. And my dad, I think, had just didn't have any other options, right? The job that we were working on was going to come to a close soon, and he didn't have anything lined up. So it's just like, all right, let's do this. And my dad, in his operating system, in his belief system, really struggled with being in a partnership. And you know, like I, it was he wouldn't even have a partnership with me. So you asked, how did it turn out? Not well for me, right? So by this time, we've built duplexes, and they're valuable, right? And my mom was like, oh, I should get my real estate license. So I already have my real estate license. I passed it, took it, passed it. My mom's like, I should have my real estate license. And I'm like, yes, we're building a team here. My dad could focus on development and building. My mom could help get her real estate license, and her and I could partner because I have my real estate license. We could list these bad boys, and we could sell them or rent them out and manage them. I'm like, finally, my dream's coming true about owning and running a family business. I'm like, thank you, Lord. Like, this is an answer to prayer. So I'm tutoring my mom, coaching her, helping her study with her every day on how to pass the real estate test. And she kept on failing it, failing it, failing it, failing it. She wasn't a great test taker. Finally, she passes after like 5 or 6 tries. And we're like, yeah. And I'm like, man, this is perfect. Like, I'm set up. I'm going to school. I've got this opportunity. I'm going to get all these listings with my mom. We're going to build out the real estate side. It's going to be awesome. As soon as she got the listing, as soon as she got her license, she got all the listings on every single building. She had these beautiful, I had no money. I'm getting $8 an hour working with my dad. I just put together a multi-million-dollar development deal, and I'm getting paid $8 an hour. Super thankful because I had a place to stay. I was living with mom and dad. I had food on the table. Like, I'm grateful, but value alignment is way off. My dad's
Yeah,
now
yeah.
making 300 grand a year. And then as soon as my mom got her license, boom, she gets these huge metal signs with her name on it. And all those signs went in front of all of our buildings. I'm like, where's my sign? Wait, where's my where's my listings? Oh, these are your
Mm.
mom's. There's, you know, like, I'm like, what? I put together this deal. I I helped you become licensed. Like, I don't get any of these. I'm like, I'm getting paid $8 an hour. Like, my truck's fuel like costs more than that. Like, I don't understand this. And so I'm trying to be grateful, but in my early immaturity, I was just like, fuck this, dude. I'm out. Actually, for a short period of time, I wanted to get away from my dad so much that I went and got a job at a local theme park wrestling alligators. Like, that's how much I'd want to get away from my dad. I'd rather wrestle, you know, 8, 9 foot alligators, deal with snakes, scorpions, spiders, and tarantulas, and all these exotic, dangerous wild animals than deal with the animal of my father. So fast forward, mom and dad are now crushing it, probably making $500,000 a year, building out their own real estate portfolio. And I'm on my own. Now I graduated from college, you know, with my degree. I'm no longer wrestling alligators, but I'm going, what am I going to do with my life?
So is
And
this
then
2004, 5-ish?
5-ish, 2005-ish. So my
Okay.
dad and mom are crushing it financially. Dad's driving a Mercedes now, convertible, right? Mom's driving this huge expedition. I mean, this is
That's gotta
going from,
be, it's gotta be super bittersweet for you because you got the wish of dad's not on the roof, but at the same time, it's like I helped you do that and now I got kicked to the curb, or at least the feeling.
yeah, for sure, man. And you know, like, here's what I'm thankful for. Looking back, in a little, I'm a little bit more mature than I was then. Not much probably. And God's working on me. But like, I was bitter, dude. Like, I built that. I built that with you guys for you. And at the time I didn't receive fruit of my work.
Hmm.
And I'm not trying to be bitter, but man, I was like,
But
like
that's a
I
totally
was
valid
pretty
feeling
upset.
for the situation, right? That's
For
that's
sure.
not you. In my opinion, you shouldn't feel bad about feeling bitter. Like that's a crappy thing that happened.
Yeah.
Um, Especially because it's your parents and you feel like it should be, hey, we're all family here. What happened? I don't think it would have been worse if you had acted on it in more ways than wrestling alligators. But I don't think that you should kick yourself for feeling bitter.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. Bitterness is a poison that destroys the vessel,
Sure.
right?
As long as
So,
you know, though, that's the thing. Like if you
yeah.
know and you don't, you're like, okay, I'm feeling this way, understandably so, but I still want to be grateful and I still want to appreciate all the things which you've made very clear that you did. Like just having the feeling doesn't poison it itself as long as you're aware it can be dangerous if you let it get everywhere else. But as long as you know it's there and you compartmentalize it and you're like, okay, this is fine. Um, yeah, I don't know. Spiel. Anyways, keep going.
Well, yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that, but for me, it was destroying me.
Yeah.
And, then I was like, fine, I'll freaking do it on my own. So I went over and uh, I hung my real estate license at another brokerage. I said, I'm out of here. I'm not working with you guys anymore. And I started doing it on my own. I started getting real estate listings, and I'm like, huh, I'm not bad at this. But then, like, I hated this. And to this day, I won't do it. I'd list the house. Like, for example, I listed a mobile home in Ocala National Forest, which is 30 minutes from my house. And I think the listing was 34 grand.
You're
It
still living at
was,
home at the time?
I'm now living in, I might have bought my condo by then.
Okay.
So I don't remember the exact, I probably lived in my condo, right? So I'm now living on my own. I'm making it on my own. And this is crazy. To afford my condo and my day job doing real estate, I was a server at night at a steakhouse. So like I'm working multiple jobs to pay for my real job to keep up, the condo and such like that. So I have this listing, and I'm like, they're like, whatever you do, get whatever listing you can. This is the advice that they have, and I think it's terrible advice. They're like, you got to get as many listings as you can. The listings are where the money is. And so I got this listing, and anytime someone wanted to look at it, I had to drive 30 minutes each way, walk around, and they're like, I don't like the color of the paint. I'm gonna pass. I'm like, well, then paint it. It's like it didn't comprehend. I didn't compute. So with this, I'm like, this sucks. Like I'm gonna make $300 commission from this after all said and done, after I do all my splits, and I've already spent that in gas, and I still have the listing. I'm like, I've got to change something. So I went back to that book that I read, How to Buy Houses, No Money Down, right? Carlton Sheets. And then I started noticing all these signs on the side of the road that say, we buy houses cash. So I'd call them. I'd be driving around, and I'd take the number, and I'd call them. I'd say, hey, I'm a local real estate agent. I'm young and I'm hungry. What kind of houses are you looking for? I'll go knock on doors. He said, really? I was like, yep. So I had 4 or 5 groups of people that were, we buy houses, no money down. So instead of working for get a listing, I'm going to make $300, I was now sending with a fax machine, sending out 10 offers a day, right? And I was like, man, I suck at these details. I hired one of my friends as an assistant. So now I'm working with investors doing like quantity with cash buyers. So they have the money and they're buying. And I'm just all day long knocking on doors, looking at pictures, sending out offers. And I was like, I'm pretty darn good at this, right? And then I brought in I made a pitch to an investment group, and we wound up from doing fix and flips to pulling all these things together of doing real estate investments, working with a strategic investor, working with the landowner, working all that stuff. And we bundled all these things, and we started uh, building all these spec homes. Built about 43 of them. I'm 26 years old. That's $8 million worth of spec homes, right? Now, not all mine, right? Like it's all, there's lots of parties involved, but I'm like, holy moly, like I'm cranking.
Hmm.
But I'm working from 8 in the morning to 8 or 9 at night, and some nights I'm sleeping under my desk at my office for doing this, and it's a grind. And this was like 2005, 2006. Things were hot, and I'm supposed to cash out for a ton of money. The market goes wham, just like crashes. That's when I go, I need to go get a job. I need something secure. I want to focus on, I was like, F capitalism. I'm done with it for, at least for now. And that's when I got a job as a firefighter. I'm like, I'm going to focus on serving.
So, two things I want people to take away. One is opportunities can present themselves in very strange places, and then you got to be ready to take advantage of them when they come. But the second one that I found quite amusing at the end is for you to say, I have to go get a real job. And your version of a real job is going around with SWAT and then helping and doing EMT stuff and all this other stuff. If you ask anyone else what a real job is, it's like sitting at a desk somewhere doing some whatever. And then sooner or later, you were off that and then back into the world of podcasting, which no one considers a real job, and and what you're doing now. So, okay, so you get the EMT stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a very active individual, right? You started the fitness companies and you want to be out and moving, right? You can see this by you're going knocking on doors, you're doing all this stuff all the time, you're moving around. You've never been a sedentary person. With Did it cross your mind at that point to go military again?
Yeah, I actually tried. So I was working at the fire department. My wife and I are married. I've got my
When
degree.
did you meet her?
So I met her when I was doing real estate.
Mm-hmm.
We dated on and off like 5 years. I
Mm-hmm.
I turned into a wild donkey of a man um, in my early 20s. When I was going on when I broke out from when I branched off and started doing my own thing, I went wild. I didn't drink till I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
I sure did catch up. I think I was even a virgin at 21. Now I've done a lot of, middle school and high school kind of like, make out with chicks and, do everything but like, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to be really real and transparent with you.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I was 21 years old and I was a pretty good kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then through a series of events of what was going on with my dad and, just seeing like my hero, just like when the hero hurts and wounds the I don't know, the person who looks up to him. So
Yeah.
my dad wounded me,
Mm-hmm.
right? He didn't wake up one day and go, I'm gonna F with that kid. I'm gonna mess his life up. But I was wounded. He hurt me financially, and then he did some things that dishonored my family and dishonored me, and it really affected me big time. I'm going nuts. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Um, I just flew off the handle, but it was all like I it was all managed very well. Um, so here I am. You asked when did I meet my wife? I met my wife right as I was coming off of I was my life would go like this in terms of my belief systems and in terms of my relationship with God between, like I'd be trashed, go to a party and hang out and, hook up with a chick and I'd be drunk out of my mind and then next morning I'd wake up and I'd go to church. Like this pull of like right and wrong in my own heart was like struggling. It was tearing me, man. I was having these moral fractures of I know that this isn't right, but I was still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is the direction. I couldn't find my path. I had a hard time finding my path, right? Got a tattoo to my arm. Like we'll keep
Yeah.
coming back to that.
Yeah.
So I had these like moral fractures of I know this isn't right, but like I just kept on doing it. I yeah. So we dated on and off, and I hurt her. I hurt my wife a ton before we were married because I was like, I'd start moving down the path of getting serious with her, and then I'd freak out. And I'm like, I'm not getting married. I'm done. I'm never gonna get married. Like the desire of one day having, wife and kids. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna get hurt. So I said, screw that. Broke up with her many times. And I was just running and chasing, trying to make money and find out who I was. And I was really good at being a firefighter. I was really good in these spaces, but for me, like we would go, I was on the in the union, and I would go to union parties, and I was working on the pension board, and I was we played in the firefighter Olympics. I actually played soccer in the firefighter Olympics, by the way. Uh, and we would go through all these things, and we would go on these union trips, and I'm hanging out with like 50 of my best buds firefighters, and I was the wild one. I'm
Hmm.
getting schmammered, dancing on tables, taking off my shirt, dancing on the dance floor. And the guys liked it, the other firefighters liked it because it was fun to watch, but I tended to attract a crowd, so then they could all like hang out with the crowd too, like, so that was my lifestyle. And then I would, the next day talk about nutrition and how that's unhealthy and we should all work out together, right? So like all these different the yin and yangs, or these good cop bad cop was like built into me, man.
Yeah.
And uh yeah, so that's how I that's funny. And then I actually yeah, interesting story, but I wound up uh, being invited to a pirate party. I love dressing, like dress up parties. It's fun, man. Like costume parties. Like I always wanted to be a pirate, anyways. So like I got invited to a pirate party, and I wound up inviting my ex-girlfriend Anna to it, and we're hanging out because she knew my family. So we're hanging out, and I get pretty drunk, and I wound up going, "Hey, come with me to the side of the house." She goes, "I'm not going to go hook up with you on the side of the house." I'm like, oh, change of plans. Okay, no, just come here. Like, so we go on the side of the house, and I take my plastic skull and crossbone ring off, and I drop to my knee. I'm drunk, really drunk. The Wind's Jammer was the beverage we were drinking. It's a family special, and I proposed to Anna with a pirate ring, skull and crossbone, on the side of a house, and she goes, "Oh, like you've broken up with me 5 or 6 times. Like this is like I'm not playing this game." She's like, "Are you serious?" I go, "Of course. Look at the ring. Of course I'm serious." I haven't shared this on the show, so I'm like, "Of course I'm serious." She goes, "Yes." So she's crazy for saying yes. And then we went out and told my family. My family's like, "Are you serious?" And one of my cousins kicked me in the nuts. He's like, "You're a wreck." And he's like, you're gonna break this girl's heart." So he kicked me in the nuts. So I'm crying from being kicked in the nuts and renouncing that I just got proposed, and I'm dressed up like a pirate. It was a great event.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Um,
15 years we've been married.
what was going on in your life that like so I guess the reason I ask is because I've been listening to a few have you heard of the Sean Ryan show?
I've heard of the guy. I have not watched it.
So he's got a bunch of like tier one operators on and, like firefighters and SWAT
Cool.
guys and all these guys that have done all these things, right? I'll say like similar backgrounds
Yeah.
to what you have, kind of the nutty childhood where they're working all the time. I'll say nutty, but they're working all the time
Nutty's
and
okay.
yeah, and they're like they end up wanting to go into they're either in construction or doing something, and then all of them either end up going into the military or SWAT or any of these other things. And a lot of them who are married have similar stories about them meeting their own wives. It was like it was very rocky at first. So I was wondering because obviously you want a good framework to build your relationship or your marriage around, and yours wasn't. But what makes it work, or what has made it work? What was the switch for you that was like, okay, I actually want to get married now? Or
Yeah.
was there a switch, or did that come like with time, understanding that, yeah, I can go chase and I can go grind and I can go get money and do all this stuff, but having this person to help me grow as an individual, like did that realization never, did it just come over time, or like how did that evolvement of you, the man, work in that period? It's something
Yeah.
I've been super interested in, and all the times that I've listened to these guys tell these stories, like, and he asks kind of similar questions, but that's one that
Yeah.
I've really wanted to ask. Um, because as the like putting myself into the woman's shoes, I'm like, yeah, this guy's super capable, but also like this guy's a train wreck in a variety of ways. Not you necessarily, but
No,
like
for
the
me, I was.
yeah.
It's
So
okay.
like But like these people are going to Afghanistan. It's like they could get shot and just never come home, and you're gonna put yourself through that. Like not necessarily for what, but like how does it work for you and
Yeah.
like the evolvement of you the man? It's something that's been super interesting to me recently.
Yeah. So the two main motivators, you know, Charles Duhigg wrote a book called The Power of Habit. There's two main motivators uh, that drive a human: pain and pleasure, right? My pleasure meter was off the charts. I remember going out and having a ball, and like sex is fun. Picking up chicks was fun at the time. Now that I have like a wife and two daughters, I'm like, man, I'm gonna look out for guys who are like me, and teach my girls how to respect, how to respect themselves. And I'm teaching my son like the what true love and what true commitment and what it really means to be a man. You're the man, Josh. High five from my buddies is not good from conquering a
Yeah.
woman. That is not what a man is. That is bad. That is harmful. It's hurtful, not only to the woman but to the man. And high fives on that stuff is like that was our a little bit of the culture that I was in. It was a little bit of the thing, and I look back and man, I was like, that's harmful and hurtful, and I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry for the people that I've hurt, right? Like, and I was always an honest and air quote good dude. Like, I would just be super honest, like, hey, I don't want a relationship. I'm happy to go on a few dates. I'm happy to, have fun, but I'm not looking to be in a relationship. I'm not looking to be married. So if you want to hang out, it's cool. But at the end of the day, I still made my choice, and it wasn't a good choice. So, like my pleasure meters were off the chart, and I was pretty good at chasing pleasure, money, women, drugs, drinking. At that time, I wasn't doing drugs, um, but drinking at least, a lot of it. And I just remember one time I woke up with one chick, and then I, did my day, did my job, worked. And then that night, I went out to a bar, got trashed, hooked up with another chick. So I had two different girls in a day. I drank. I was making like, and I just remember driving home. Now this is bad in terms of like I'm not giving any type of honor or glory to this. This is not good. But in a young man's head who was in that culture, in that space, I was getting high fives of going, man, that's awesome. Like, oh, geez, attaboy. And I look back and I go, man, Josh, you were so lost. You were
Hmm.
so lost, and you were hurting yourself and you were hurting others. And it was just two hurt people, this woman and me. We were both hurt, and we found solace in each other. But that's not really what a woman really doesn't want that. And me looking back as a man, I really didn't want that. But it just felt good, and it felt like, why not live,
Yeah.
you know, free love and all this stuff. And I look back, and I'm not ashamed of the things that, I did, because it was all mutual, but it was not healthy for anybody. And it was against my belief system. So there was moral fractures, and it was affecting my relationship with God because I was trying to get that right, but I didn't know how. So here I am, I'm driving home, and I'm crying because I'm so lonely. Now, I have more friends than anybody I knew. I had romantic sexual relations with women, but I was lonely. And I cried and I prayed to God. I said, God, please help me get out of this. This is really not what I want. This is not who I want to be. So you said what changed? What was the moment that changed? Was realizing that I had that I chased so hard for, and I didn't like it. So you ask, why do, guys go to Afghanistan, run to the fire, run to that thing? I think a lot of times we look in our life, we look at our parents and we go, I don't want to be like that. We look at our current situation. A lot of guys who go into
Well, I
who
understand that, but it's like, why, as a woman, why would you want to be with a guy that's going to go put himself in harm's way all the time? And then oftentimes it doesn't work, but oftentimes it does. And those people who like you've been married for 15 years and you've got three kids. Like she had to put up with that
For
for
sure.
some level of time. And so how does that like work itself out? Because your kids are going to see the example of the evolution of you, and that's super powerful, right?
Yeah.
All the work that you put in, all the mistakes that you made, all the trials and the tribulations and the relationships that were there and weren't there, like that's a very good example for a young, well, both genders, but that's a good example for kids to want to like see that in their dad, and
Mm.
to see then the maturation and the evolution of these were mistakes, don't do this, this is what I learned. And I guess that kind of like trial of a relationship between two people to create the life for the next generation, where it's, do you understand what I'm getting at? Like people who are married and they just sit at a desk all day and nothing happens to them, and their kids just are like, "Is that it? Am I just gonna grow up and sit at a desk?"
Mm.
Not that there's anything wrong with sitting at a desk, but there's something that's very intriguing to me about that kind of situation, especially because oftentimes you have those kids grow up and also want to follow in the father's footsteps, whether it's military or whatever, but it's there's less of the train wreck piece beforehand. They've learned, and then you get like amazing people that come out of that, and amazing people coming out of hard situations is like, to me very interesting. So I guess that's more what I'm getting at is like how the early stages worked right before. was was the evolution, did it kind of, you felt obviously, well, I'm assuming when you had a kid that changed you loads, but like getting up to that point of going from train wreck to we're having a kid, like how was that for you guys? And for
Yeah.
you specifically, I guess is a little bit more what I'm getting at. I know we spent a lot of time with this, but it's super interesting to me, and you've been super transparent, so I appreciate that greatly.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I think that men will run towards pleasure only for so long, and then they realize like it's empty, right? You gain the pleasure, and then you like 3 minutes after whatever, 3 minutes after your pleasure, you're going, I either need another dopamine hit, I need to go, have sex again or masturbate or drink or do drugs or whatever it is, or I just struck a big deal. The 5 minutes after that event, you're empty again.
The
And you're
addiction.
going, you're itching for the next whatever it is. So like this like search for pleasure, man. I'm like, how's that working out for you? Not good. Here I am, and I'm like getting high fives from people, being admired by my peers, and I'm feeling like shit. And I'm crying out to my God, going, this can't be it. Like this sucks. I don't want this of what, like I thought that I would be fulfilled in this, and I'm not. So I think a lot of times we then revert to fear and pain as a motivator. So now I'm going, I don't want that feeling, so we'll do anything to get away from pain. We'll do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. So then I started really digging into like my pains, and then the pains I saw my dad put my mom through, and pains that I saw that I was putting other people through. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. So I started making small changes, right?
Mm.
Being married, like going from many women to one woman is a challenge, right? And we had our challenges in marriage, like, and we still have to work on our intimacy, and we still have to work on our communication. Like it's hard going from a wild man to a committed man. But men need structure, and we need commitment. We just operate better. So I think a lot of men join the force, or the fire service or whatever, because we know that we just can't, well, there's something in us that goes, we know that it would be healthy for us to have support, structure, and commitment. And I think that the fire service, police service, military, that kind of structure is good for a wild ass man like myself, because it has a lot of structure involved. So I needed that structure. I needed that level of commitment, that level of um what is the word where it's like an honorable commitment. So I made
Mm,
an
yeah.
honorable commitment right? I carried a badge of, the medic badge, which means that I promise to protect, I promise to serve, I promise to care for. As a firefighter, like I promise my life in exchange for yours, right? So that level of commitment was very good for me. That structure was very good for me. And then when I got married, I made a commitment with my wife to not screw up on her because I saw my dad do that and it hurt my mom, hurt my sister, hurt me, hurt my brother. Like seeing my dad fail morally to my mother was devastating to me. So I go, I will never effing do that.
Mm.
So it's not so much like it was like I'm super committed to my wife and I love her every single thing about her and her shit don't smell and like I cherish the ground she walked. No, it wasn't like that. It's just like I love her and I'm going to pursue her, but whatever I do, I will never effing do that, right? So I
Yeah.
was running away from the pain of that, and that was good guide rails for me because I saw the pain it hurt. So like, how did I become a decent husband? I was going, looking at some poor examples, going, I will not repeat that. Like breaking a generational curse, I will never do that. I will not do that. Like commitment to myself, I will bleed out. I will not do that because that was devastating.
That's
So,
such a crazy thing that it's the guidelines of watching other people make mistakes and just saying, I'm not going to do that, not going to do that, not going to do that, and not going to do that, like, is actually pretty good. Like, that's a very good piece of advice to be on. Like, if you avoid a lot of those things, then you're doing something right, and then you can start to fill in the pieces later because you don't have the conflict of this mistake that you made. So you're not spending your time dealing with a resolution where you don't need to, and you can spend your time focusing on the little things to get better at, as well, because you're not spending time making mistakes. I think, yeah, if avoiding mistakes is such an underrated part of life. People focus a lot on like,
yeah,
um, what are the things to do, but like in sports, the best teams are the ones that do the littlest things the best without making mistakes.
yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so all right, we've done that for a while. I want to jump to the podcasting. Was podcasting right after the firefighting and the or like what was the timeline of okay, so you're doing firefighting EMT stuff, and then what comes after that?
Yep. Retire early, cash out pension, put it all on black. I got rid of all my lawn equipment. We moved to a new area because Ocala doesn't have the tech set up, right? So I'm like, if I'm going to build a technology company, fitness technology company, I've got to move somewhere where
Oh,
there's
the
tech.
fitness. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Yep. So I started building the Village Push in about 2012-ish, and we moved to Jacksonville. And as soon as we moved there, we rent a house, walking distance to the beach. It was cool, and I'm like, finally, I've made it. And then my wife's pregnant at this point with our first kid. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to be a billionaire because I'm building a tech company. We started seeing things like Facebook and all these things pop up and how all these people are being, getting super rich. And that was 2012. It was a 10-year ass whooping. And I got to fast forward it because I've got to go fairly soon.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it was a 10-year period, a decade of getting my ass whooped. Like financially, I since then, I built a fitness technology company. It failed, helped hundreds of people, but it got me into venture capital. Like it got me into the world of like meeting investors and like seeing how they work. And I'm studying books on investing and venture capital. And I'm meeting with billionaires and I'm like learning about philanthropy and I'm learning about impact and I'm learning all these things because I built this technology. I built this fitness company that failed, massive failure. I wound up going bankrupt. I had to be on food stamps. I had to work on the back of moving trucks or sell, roofs door to door. In the middle of building each, next consulting, next media brand, next thing, I had to do whatever it took to put diapers on my baby's butts. I now
You
have
still
three
had the
kids.
mindset though of the grinding from before, which I think is very important to point out for those listening. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah. I well, I couldn't get a job. A lot of times I'm unhireable. People would look at my resume and they're like, "You're a train wreck, bro." Like I've had more jobs than most. I'm very, very entrepreneurial. I'm a visionary, and that's scary to a lot of people if they don't know how to structure or partner with someone like me. It's hard to do. I get it. Like I'm working really hard on myself and the value proposition that I bring to the table. But it's hard. And guys like me have a hard time getting jobs. So I had to get any type of job to keep food on the table. I have a commitment to my family, right? Commitment is important to me. So I'm working my ass off for a decade, doing anything I possibly can to provide for my family. And I didn't do it well for 10 years, man. Like I struggled financially, deeply struggled. But in the process, I built a ton of different media brands. I wound up selling one. I wound up learning how to like set up a consultancy overnight. I can make a business or I could set up a new business or a new brand or a new opportunity financially. Like I just understand now because I struggled with it so deeply for a decade of how to make money, how to make other people money because I learned every way not to do it. And what drove me? My kids were hungry. And my wife, I realized that my wife's one of her greatest desires is security and stability. And I didn't provide that well for her. So it would cause fights. So if I could provide some level of stability or security, like our relationship tends to be better. Not that she's focusing on the money, but I get it. A woman's needs for a man, one of my needs is I need to be respected. Like I want to be respected because of the character that I am and the kind of guy that I'm trying to be. But on the flip side, I know that one of the things my wife wants to feel is provided for and protected, right? If she's focusing on helping raise and nurture the kids, like that, my job, my side of the deal is to do this. And it's hard, man, because I didn't do it well, but I was trying everything. And you said you've done so many things. It's because the pain of having an eviction notice on the door and seeing the wife cry, or seeing another car leave on the back of a tow truck, or going through, getting sued by Bank of America or whoever for because we couldn't pay our credit card bills. We were maxed out in life and such like that. Like bringing a newborn child into the courthouse to get sued, like that stuff is painful. So what will I do to get out of that? Anything I possibly can that aligns with my morals and ethics. Like what I won't do is I will not neglect my morals and ethics because I did those moral fractures when I was living a life of a wild man. So I say, okay, I got it. I've got my relationship with my God and my belief systems. I will not void those. I will not void or ruin the relationships and commitments I have with my wife. So those are my two most important like guidelines. Okay, what could I do within those to provide and do my part of it? Anything I possibly can. So if you look through my LinkedIn, I keep all this crap on my LinkedIn. So look through and you'll see, congrats on the new job. Whoop, left it. Congrats on the new opportunity. Oh, you built a brand. Hey, it's actually doing good. Nope, it failed. Congrats on the new podcast. I built 25 podcast shows, did 2,500 interviews, built a massive network of investors and founders and such like that, right? So like all of these things were going because I wanted to take care of my family.
Dude, that's a great motivator for sure. All right, so I know we got a little bit of time left. Um, Podcasting as a venture in terms of money making is not the easiest thing in the world. Um, were you stable enough at that point when you started doing podcasting, or was this another part of the I'll do whatever I can to put food on the table?
Yeah. Yeah, the first podcast I built was 2015. And since then, built probably 20, 25 of them. I did it as a service for other people, help them build, launch, and grow podcast shows. I've even, you've been a part of communities that I've built about helping people, monetize their shows. And mission changes sometimes based on the results. So you build something, you test it out, and you look at the results, and you go, am I getting good results? And some people will just keep doing the same thing. Sometimes you got to pivot. So that's why I've shut down shows, I've built shows, I've sold one. Like I've done a lot, and I've learned how to monetize media. I've learned how to build deals and structures and set up companies. Like I've learned that process. So now I've been doing it for almost 10 years of podcasting and such like that. And it's a great way to build networks. It's great way to build relationships. It's a great way to add a component of growth to your existing business model. Um, I have no desire to be TikTok famous. I have no desire to build this massive audience. You know, like you and I joke about it all the time, man. Like I'm in this to either make a crap ton of money or to drive my mission forward. I am very driven towards helping men. I knew how bad it struggled. I almost killed myself. I didn't almost kill. I contemplated killing myself because I struggled with my identity, who I am, what's my purpose. I was lost. I was struggling financially. Being under the pressures of family, relationships, financial, like lack of identity and purpose, because like nothing you are doing for 10 years works. That's heavy on a dude. And I thought about just like jumping off a bridge. I was like, this sucks. I'm just gonna try to figure out, how do I get in the afterlife quicker? And that's not healthy because I got beautiful wife and kids, like that F's them up. So my
Is that
commitment
is that
towards
what kept
them,
you going those 10 years when things were not going well? Like 10 years of we'll say missteps and no purpose is like that's that's a lot, man. That's deep stuff.
it's a lot. You get little glimpses of light through the fogginess, right? And with each new step, each new thing, you said what's the most important thing for a skill that someone should learn is emotional quotients, which is understanding who you are, right? But I also think it's understanding who you serve, right? So every time I get closer and I have a win, whether it's financial or another guy texts me, man, I got a phone call from a special operator the other day. I spent some time with him and just kind of walked him off a bridge and such like that. And he called me up the other day. He goes, Josh, if it wasn't for you, fill in the blank of some level of success, like huge win for the guy. And he goes, if it wasn't for you and the content that you created and the way that you help support men and do that, like if it wasn't for you, fill in the blank, right? I don't want to share too much of the guy's story. But like that, I go, man, that felt good. But I'm like, how does that connect in with, like taking companies public, which is the kind of world that I'm in, or doing investments or, doing strategic media? Like, how does that connect? And to be honest, I really don't know sometimes. But I'm going to keep doing it because it's who I am. And every morning I wake up and I create this charter, it kind of gives me some guide rails in how to focus. It's very easy to say yes to a gajillion things. I have it written up on my board. My word for the day is eliminate. Like, what can I start removing from my world? And I have to start removing pieces so I could go deeper in service to others and to the groups that I work with, the investment companies that I help build and grow. So like that's where I'm going. But why do I keep running forward? One is, man, I still have that fear and that pain of, like not being able to provide for my wife and kids. That freaks me out, dude. I'm gonna keep running. But then on the flip side of that, like I love that my son asked me this morning, hey dad, when could we have a garage sale? I want to sell some of my toys. He's 7 years old and he's thinking about like, how do I make money? Like I love the fact that these kids are learning and growing in a healthy way, in a healthy environment about drive, about mission and purpose, about business, about entrepreneurship. But then like if I stop, like have you seen Schindler's List, the movie Schindler's List?
No, I haven't seen a lot of classics.
Okay. It's a great movie. I'm gonna kind of give away a piece of it. In the end, he looks at a gold ring. He pulls off his wedding ring, and he has calculated to the penny how many lives he could save during the Holocaust, how many Jews he could save per dollar, per whatever, per unit of measurement. And he looked at his ring. He goes, I could have saved five more, or whatever the number was. So he discovered his purpose and he found a love for humanity. Purpose is in your people. When you find your people and you find your mission and you find the people that you're serving, right? That's what drives you. So for me, it's like if I stop now, if I stop doing what I'm doing, building investment companies and investing in men and building these things, like I'm gonna dry up because that's my mission, my purpose. It's who I am. I've got to do who I am. I cannot not do that. I probably can't get a job turning cranks and clocking in, clocking out. It's not who I am. Like God put me on the fringe to deal with some messy dudes and to build stuff, and sometimes it's in a world of risk, venture capital, private equity, family office, like these kind of things. It's risky, and I'm taking financial, I have to study this big, heavy freaking book, but it's who I am. It's my mission. I've got to do it. I cannot not do it.
Dude, that's amazing stuff. Where can the people find all of your podcasts and stuff if the
Yeah.
links and everything everywhere else? Where should the people go?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is if they're trying to follow a podcast and the podcast doesn't exist anymore because I have to have a life pivot, the probably the most consistent thing that I've done in terms of like my outward exposure is LinkedIn, so they could come and look at the whole story and see like, holy shit, this guy's a shit show. I had a friend call me a dumpster fire, right? Like that's a good place probably for people to like be along on the journey. I made a promise to God when I was standing on the bridge that I would share the journey and be open about it. I'm keeping my promise, right? So LinkedIn is probably the healthiest place to see a consistent journey, which is, if you look up Joshua Wilson or Joshua Bruce Wilson, my middle name named after my father, that'll pull it up. Or Eric could, you could put the link in the show notes or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. Link will be in the description for that. Um, any last nickels before we get you out of here?
Yeah, I've got to pass on a question to the
We'll do it.
next
We'll
person.
do it after. They don't get to know the question either.
Oh, I've got a good one for you guys. All right, Eric, man, you're a phenomenal podcast host. Good job, man.
I
Good job.
appreciate you. I appreciate you. All right, guys. With that, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.